And it turns out you can do more than one thing at the same time. And I think it's important people should know, hopefully your listeners as well, that why do only one thing if you can do more than one thing?
Today on Time We Discuss, I have Erika Silverman with me. Erika, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here today.
Erika, you are a lawyer, you're an author, you're a mom, you wear all these different hats. I'm excited to dive into all of these. But I first want to talk about you as a lawyer. So a typical day as a lawyer, what's that like for you?
Well, basically, I work for myself. I began my practice about 20 years ago as a solo practitioner. I have people calling me all hours of the day, all hours of the night. I'm an estate planning attorney. I do a lot of times crisis moments. People they might be sick or ill or have horrible things going on in their lives. They call me to do all kinds of estate planning to help them to make sure that they'll go avoid probate for their families, conservatorship. So I'm on call basically all the time. And people love, to, of course, to procrastinate when it comes to taking care of their estate planning matters because who wants to talk about their own mortality? So I get calls when people are on their deathbed sometimes, and it's incredibly stressful, but also very rewarding. I get to help all these amazing people and families. I get, for example, I had a client yesterday give me a bouquet of flowers as a thank you gift. It was so sweet and so nice and so unexpected. And I realized I'm actually helping these people, which makes me feel really good about that. And that's why I chose the field. I like to help people, be of service, and hopefully people make a difference in their lives in that kind of way. So that's what I've been doing for 20 years. And it's great. It's exhausting and stressful. It's also incredibly rewarding.
Did you start as an attorney practicing a different type of law that kind of segued into this, or you started right out of the gate?
Well, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do out of law school. So I did all kinds. I dabbled in, I did for example, I entered the DA's office. I did a little court work at that point, a little bit of litigation, a little bit of everything until I found my little niche. It turns out I just like to help people more one-on-one. I'm not really a very litigious person, basically, which is kind of ironic being a lawyer right now. And I'm not very confrontational, as you can also very ironic, but I love to write and reason and argue and help people in that way. So it took a while to find my niche. Eventually I did though. But it was actually, I worked as an intern as a personal injury attorney at one point. I went to a criminal justice system at one point. I did everything you possibly imagine before I found this particular area of law. So it took a long time to find my way, I guess.
How did you discover estate planning? So was it one of these things where it's like you tried this, that, and the other, and there was like one more thing to try? Like what how did you actually get started with that? Like what drew you to that?
Okay, my husband's friend's mother was an estate planning lawyer, and she was like me. Oh, Erica, I'm not very confrontational. Try this area of law. I thought that first was kind of depressing. Who wants to talk about death and dying? And just actually, it's quite the opposite. It's actually about life. You're helping people live a better life for themselves, get their affairs in order, and they are very appreciative of you. And she kind of, I guess, put me in that right direction. And also by process elimination, I figure I don't like litigation, and most areas of law require having to go to court. This one area happened not to have to go to court that much, except for a probate matter, which is very, very, very infrequent. And it's about as my personality. Like I don't like to, argue in front of people that much. So I like to write more and more, I guess, analytical thinking, and that it kind of shows me by accident, really.
When you first decided to go to law school, what were your dreams? What did you originally want to do? Did you want to be in a courtroom? What did you want to do?
I had no idea, honestly. I just thought, well, this is an area of, when you're a lawyer, there's so many areas of law you could possibly go into. I figured that way, at least if I become a lawyer, I have complete amount of discretion as far as I want to do personal injury, litigation, maybe do real estate law. There's so many areas I could actually kind of dive into. I didn't know what I wanted. That's kind of why I chose the area of law because it gets opens there are so many different, I guess, possibilities and opportunities out there. That I really, to be honest, I had no clue what I was doing. I just I like the area of law. I like to think. I like to write and perhaps I could just figure out what I want to do when I go to law school.
What about going from undergrad to law school? Did you go right from one to the other? Did you take some time in between? What did that look like for you?
Right away, I did not take time off at all. I've had some of my friends that wanted to kind of explore the world first, so to speak, and they took off all this time and never actually got back to going back to school again. They just couldn't get back in that same kind of motivation again. I didn't want that to happen to me. If I just go ahead and take, as I go for like a band, take off the band, go right away, do it, and then hopefully you'll have a career and a life and everything else will kind of fall into place. But yeah, I didn't take any time off at all.
Now, how about this? And I don't know if this is true or not, if this can really happen, because it's one of these things you see on TV.
Okay.
So if is it possible for someone to take the else? No,
Else-
no, not the LSATs. If someone were to study their butt off and try to take the bar and they pass the bar without going to law school, can they do that and still practice law, or do you need to go to law school?
I think you have to have a JD. You have to have a what's called Juris Doctor degree. I'm sure you have to have the requirement before people actually accept you. I think Abraham Lincoln might be the only exception to that rule, right? But yeah, I don't think you have to actually go. Yeah, you can't. There's no shortcuts. You have to go through and get a 4-year accredited college or a university program. get your, and then take your LSAT. And yeah, there's no, I wish there was, yeah, you can't, you have to have a JD.
How easy is it for someone to transition from one area of specialty to another? So if you decide tomorrow you don't want to be an estate planner anymore, you want to practice
Right.
another type of law, how easy is it to switch?
It's so hard. I'll tell you what, because you don't want to get sued essentially. You have, if being specialized is so important because if you don't know what you're doing, obviously you make a mistake, it could be a huge ramification for you and your clients. So, and the problem with law school is when you're done law school, you have to kind of actually go, the real learning actually begins, real education actually begins. Having to get specialized in your area of law, knowing what you're doing. I mean, I didn't know anything about estate planning. I take all kinds of courses, go to seminars, and it was a whole educational experience for that. So having a transition like that, you be really, really careful because it's hard. All areas of law are very different and they're all kind of different nuances, laws, regulations. It's a very hard process to do that.
Something you said I thought was very interesting. You said that you want to make sure that you basically have everything right so you don't get sued. Now,
Absolutely.
with with doctors, they have the malpractice insurance. Do lawyers carry any kind of like insurance like that?
In California, you have to have malpractice insurance by law, 100%. That's a California law. I'm not sure other states, but yes, in California, you have to have that, and it's expensive.
So as an estate planner, so I think probably even any lawyer in general, this could be kind of difficult. So when you have a business, you know, your goal ideally is you have repeat customers, you know, that you sell something, you know, they come back and you sell them something else.
Right.
With estate planning, that doesn't necessarily work. And I think for most lawyers, that probably really doesn't work a lot. You don't have to work with a lawyer a whole lot. So
Right.
is that part of the challenge for you that you do someone's estate and then it's kind of done and you have to find someone else? How?
100%. That's why you do a lot of networking. I work with financial advisors, CPAs. I do, however, get a lot of referrals from other, of course, previous clients as well. Often it's also generational type of things. For example, I did a child, for example, my great grandfather, his son called me the other day to do his trust because his father before him used me, you know, years ago. If they like it, of course, they'll tell their family and friends. But just have that repeat. It's very hard to generate, you know, obviously have the constant people coming in and out of your office. Like that's hard to do that. But after 20 years of practice, I have to say I don't have to advertise anymore. It's pretty much word of mouth. I'm very lucky. I paid my dues. I did all the seminars. I went to all the different, you know, try to network with the different CPAs, financial people. I did everything I possibly could, of course, could do to put my name out there. But you know, after a while, people kind of know who you are, which is really, really nice and very flattering.
How about continuing education? Do you have to do any kind of CE credits in order to maintain your license as a
Yes,
practicing
you
lawyer?
do. Every couple of years, you take all kinds of courses, and yes, you have to. Yes, to maintain your your license. That's true.
Switching gears, let's talk about you as an author. How did that come to be? What kind of books do you write? Do you write about the law? What's it like?
You know, the funny thing is, my profession is so sometimes dark and depressing. I want to say completely opposite that, and also want to be very creative as well. The law is very black and white, and not a lot of, you know, unfortunate creativity. And after having my children, I want to write children's books, a completely different thing that's complete opposite from the law. It's creative, it's fictional, it's light, it's obviously not about death and dying and darkness, but about very more inspirational, uplifting topics. And it's an outlet for me essentially. I love being creative. I've always been a creative person, but I chose a very practical field that could actually make money and support myself. Whereas being an author is it's more subjective field. It's hard to actually know if you can make a living doing that. It was a risk. But I love doing it. And after 20 years, I figured, you know, it's time to do something different, I guess. I was kind of tired of the same exact thing over and over and over again. And I did actually by accident. I was just reading the stories by my children. I thought, you know, I could do this perhaps. I don't know if I like the stuff that's out there. And I just thought maybe if I could just, you know, try one little story, see how it works. And I went and I took some graphic design courses and learned how to be an illustrator, a very different thing I never done before in my life. And I kind of put these books together kind of like, as I guess my kids could like almost like a test run if they actually liked it or not. And they loved it. And also, my daughter didn't like reading at first too. She hated reading. I thought, how can I make her want to read? Hopefully, I thought perhaps she'll read one of my books, and then she'll be excited about that. If I put her name in the book itself, make her like a, you know, like one of the characters, she'll actually like to read, and it actually worked. And I thought, you know, actually, after a while, I kind of write more. I wrote more things and more things, and I've now written 12 books after all this time. And I love it's actually very therapeutic for me. It's like an escape for me, and it's a way to be creative, tell these wonderful stories. I love inspiring children. It's most important. For example, every story has a very profound message about whether, you know, you're not like how you look, like you are basically trying to, you know, if you never reach for your dreams. Every story has a very important goal that will help kids become the best version of themselves. But I absolutely love doing it. But it's a very light part of my life. I absolutely love because the other part of my job is very serious. And it does help people, of course, but it can be a little bit too, sometimes dark, a little bit too serious for me at times. And the children's books are just completely 100% the opposite. That's why I love doing it. And it turns out you can do more than one thing at the same time. And I think it's important people should know, hopefully your listeners as well, that why the only one thing if you can do more than one thing? I mean, why we only just categorize it being a lawyer? You can be a lawyer, an author, a teacher, whatever you want to do.
Even an
But
illustrator.
yeah, exactly. But why the only one thing? I think our whole life we're always taught to be one thing we grow up, that's it. But why that? We have one life, make it the most incredible life you could possibly live. That's my philosophy anyway.
I love that perspective that you have. That's awesome. Now, did you go down the self-published route, or did you go down the route of a traditional publisher?
Both. The first book I experimented, did self-publishing. I thought, I don't think that's going to be a very good idea. I then went ahead and hired a real publisher because I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I mean, I can write the books, of course, but they know how to actually publish it correctly, get it out there. And I thought I want to take it very seriously and give myself a little shot. So I went ahead and I did hire a publisher for that. But otherwise, I write everything myself, illustrated them myself. I do all my, but of course, they actually publish it to make sure it's done correctly.
Thinking about the first book that you wrote and some of
Mm-hmm.
the challenges you faced with that, and then
Yeah.
have overcome those, and now that process is so much easier. What was that like? Like some of those initial challenges that are now no longer.
Self-doubt, essentially. I don't know if I no, I thought maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I'm not good enough. People might perhaps think I'm crazy. They might laugh at my books. They think maybe I'm not really an author. I'm just pretending to be someone I'm really not. I cared a way too much what people thought. And I think I also what if I can't sell it? How embarrassing that's going to be. And after I thought to myself, if I enjoy doing this and I do, who cares what people think? I mean, of course, it'd be great to make a ton of money, be a famous author, but if that doesn't happen for me, my kids love the books. It got my daughter to learn how to read and want to learn how to read. And it makes me feel really happy at the end of the day. And that's why I did it.
Maybe a week or two ago, I was speaking with another author, Aaron Ryan. He's a science fiction author for a young adult,
Oh,
and
really?
one of the things that we were talking about was that I lost it.
I've had those too. It's so horrible.
So speaking with science fiction author Aaron Ryan about a week or two ago, and during the course of the conversation, I was referencing another author that I'd spoken with. Her name was Aubrey. She's a children's book author,
Okay.
and I was saying, I can't believe this is happening again.
Don't worry.
Oh, I got to keep that as outtakes. All right.
No, it's good.
I
I
think
like
it's to
it.
do with the education. I think
Okay.
that's what it boiled down to. So when I was talking to, I believe it was Aubrey, and during the course of the conversation with Aaron, I couldn't remember if it was Aubrey that actually said this or not. But one of the other writers I'd spoken with, may have been Aubrey, was that, you know, not being trained to be a children's book author or not being trained to be an author, sometimes you create some of the best works because you're more writing about what you know. And I remember
Yeah.
saying to Aaron too, I said, I think I'm quoting it correctly, but I might not be. I have to go back and revisit that. But it made for a really interesting remark and obviously a secondary humorous event in our conversation here. So when you went to school, your undergrad, was that like pre-law? What did you go to school for? And how has that helped or hindered you as both, well, I guess, as an author and or as a lawyer?
I majored in economics and political science at UCI, and it kind of gave me an idea of going business or law. I would kind of cover all my different, I guess, my branches. Honestly, it didn't really prepare me for anything. It's basically a degree. You have to have the degree to get the next stepping stone, the next level to get into law school. But I wouldn't say that I used my anything that was really a practical degree to get. But that's what it was like. It's a pre-law, I guess, kind of thing. People often go in that area, political science to go to become a lawyer. But it wasn't that helpful, honestly.
What about when it comes to writing? Where do you get your biggest source of inspiration?
My children, of course. I mean, I have so much great material from them. In fact, for example, my daughter, I remember she lost her first tooth. She was freaking out about her first tooth falling out. I thought I should write a story about this because kids are probably traumatized by having their tooth falling out. So I had the character be the tooth, afraid of falling out of the person's mouth. And the whole thing's about the tooth fairy and how she's so wonderful and you shouldn't worry about that. And I thought that's a wonderful thing to write about for kids. And my 11th book is all inspired by my son, Aaron. He hates going to bed. He hates eating vegetables. He hates all these things. I wrote a book about him living a life in which he writes his own rules. It's called Aaron's Rules. He can have whatever he wants for dinner, whatever he wants to do. He can write, have hours of iPad, for example. And on this alternate reality he's created for himself, he realizes his rules actually are not that great after all. My kids inspire all the great stuff I write about, all their fears, their worries, all that. And of course, on my own childhood experience as well, I do that as well. And I do write about very difficult topics sometimes. I have, for example, my books 3 and 4. They're called It's Raining Lemons, and the other one is called Lemonade, how you take negatives and turn them into positives. whether it's bullying or let's say you don't like how you look, self-esteem issues, death, divorce, and about all that good stuff in a way that kids understand. That's actually very lighthearted and very sweet for them, of course, to understand what that's all about. Even I talk about racism too, and then that's a horrible thing to talk about. And I have stories called Peanut Butter and Jelly, how people may be very different from who you are, but together you make actually a better combination. And it's a way they can understand how people may not look like you, talk like you, think like you, but give them a chance because you may actually like them very much and also learn a lot from who they are because they're so opposite for you in the first place. But I love to take a real world experience I've had with myself or my kids and put them in these books to help people.
That is awesome. I love that. It reminds me of one of the authors we used to get for our kids, and I think it was Todd Parr, I think is the name.
Okay.
And if that's the name, if I'm remembering the name correctly, a lot of very similar things, a lot of very similar themes, and that was just great material for our kids to kind of, give them
Yeah,
a glimpse as to what life is like on a very light level, I guess.
exactly.
Now,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
you said before about you were scared, for lack of better words, about writing that book, about how, what will your friends think, family think, whatever. At what point did you knock that barrier down and really embrace, like, now I'm an author? What was that like?
To be honest, the New York Times came knocking on my door. It was unbelievable. I thought, oh my gosh. At first, I thought it was a mistake. I thought, okay, they have it wrong. Erika Silverman, it can't be me. And then I thought it was a joke. They're asking me for money or something. It's got to be a scam. And it turns out, and I talked to my editor, and they go, no, that's the real New York Times. Like, oh my God, how they find my book? I don't know how they found it, but they found me. They read it, they loved it, and they wrote an article about me. And then I thought, oh my God, this actually could be something real. And that took a higher power. That sounds so crazy, but when they come knocking on your door, they finally feel like, oh my gosh, maybe this is actually something that actually could be a real career for me at this point. And they wrote this amazing article, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is actually unbelievable. And then I actually decided to take a chance, and I actually had to pay the first run to get my books in Barnes and Noble in the actual stores. And if they liked it, they picked it up again, and they sold out. I could not believe it with no marketing, and no one knows who the heck I am. I'm an unknown person. I thought, oh my gosh, this is actually, that's what made me realize that I actually have something here. I'm not a joke. So you don't really know. I mean, and I'm a very humble person. I'm very hard on myself. And I thought, well, I liked it for myself. My kids like it because, of course, they're my kids. But when people you don't know are telling you it's actually good, then you actually have something that's actually worth something. That's what it did for me. So it was wonderful to actually be recognized for what you love to do, and people actually seem to like it, and I'm just so grateful for that, really.
Erika,
So
that is an absolutely awesome story. Congratulations on that. That is
thank you,
really,
thank
really
you.
cool. And I can't even imagine being put in that position because I think immediately any person is going to think, it's a scam. They're
I did
trying
think
to
it
get
was fun.
something.
I did. And I thought that's a cruel thing. I thought that's so mean. How could people do that to people? So at first I was really angry. Like that is just not nice playing people. You should never, play those emotions like that. I was just, but sure enough, it was true. I couldn't believe it.
Wow. Wow,
So
that is fantastic. Erika, we are running a little short on time, so I'm going to jump. One thing I like to do is extend the courtesy to the person I'm speaking with. If there's a project that you're working on, a cause you believe in, if you want to talk about your business, your books more, I do like to extend the courtesy, so I'll give the floor over to you.
oh, thank you. Well, I want to talk my books if that's okay. I've written now 12 books, believe it or not. I have a couple here to show you. I'm not sure if you guys can see these. These are the first two I've ever written. And and each of them have about 13 short stories and illustrations. I'll show you the illustrations there too, that about going through your dreams and how you can make, like hopefully whatever, for example, my flaws may be perfect, love yourself just the way you are. And I have all kinds of gorgeous, really important, very profound information here for this. Hopefully I'll help people make better people and enrich their lives. And essentially they're on Amazon, they're on Kindle, Walmart.com. And again, I have about 12 different books right now. I have the first couple ones. This is called How to Become a Superhero. And the sequel is A Superhero's Inside of You. And they have different types of messages. This one, for example, deals with self-love, courage, and strength. This one, for example, deals with forgiveness and again, inclusion, how they hopefully let everyone exactly who they are, not exactly, more about trying to get rid of the racism. I know, horrible, I guess we could say racism and all that kind of wonderful, those kinds of things. Speaking up for yourself when you have things you want to talk about, your voice as far as trying to change the world. This is actually a great story. Life isn't written right about it, which means basically, for example, live the best life you possibly can live. Whatever life you want to do, go for your dreams and don't let your negative self-talk, of course, prevent you from going through your dreams. And then I have, of course, It's Raining Lemons, Lemonade, about turning negatives into positive, like I talked about before. I have It's a Girl's World, all about girl empowerment for young girls. I also have what's called How to Become Human. It talks about how our high-tech world that we live in today, that we often forget how to be actually just regular human beings, how we forget how to say hello to people and talk to people in person as opposed to Zoom meetings or Instagram and messaging and all that wonderful stuff. And then I have, of course, Aaron's Rules coming up by my son I talked about before. And I have a daughter, so I wrote a book for him. I had to write one, of course, for her, and it's called Chasing Rainbows, about going for your dreams, no matter how difficult they may be. And I have one's called It's Difficult, How to Become, oh my gosh, I'm going to blank here. Growing up is hard to do, about all the different things we have to face as children, for example, from bullying and even coming of age issues, and even, for example, finding your purpose in life. And so they're basically everyone's very different and very unique. They all have very important, profound messages. And I just love every single one because they all are very true as far as I believe in everything I've actually written about these things. They're all very, very true. And I think they'll hopefully help people of all ages. But I think that most importantly, hopefully want people to help encourage your kids to want to read and get out there and want to read more. And there's a story I think that anyone can identify with in every single one of the books, hopefully. There'll be one little message about, I recommend that sounds true for me. I can identify that particular situation because I found it about myself before too. But basically it's on Amazon, Kindle, Barnes and Noble. Please check them out. And I hope you love them. It's been a labor of love, and I love writing them. So as long as you guys keep reading them, I'll keep writing them.
I love that. And again, I love all the topics you've chosen. Erika, one thing you didn't mention, what age groups are they written towards?
Okay, I'd say elementary school, probably kindergarten, probably through fifth grade. But the topics are actually very mature topics, but again, written in a way that kids will understand. So I think probably even people as maybe old as 11, 12 years old could probably also benefit from it as well.
Erika, thank you again so much for joining us on Time We Discuss, where we got to talk about you as a lawyer and what it's like to be an author.
Thank you for having me. It's been such an honor and privilege. And congratulations to you too on your business and your wonderful, amazing podcast. And I hope it goes really well too. So
Thank you. Thank you so much.